The wind outside Fairview Woods had that strange electric chill, the kind that hums in the power lines and makes the trees whisper. It was Halloween night, the last one of October, and something in the air felt wrong. Leaves skittered across the empty street like nervous fingers. Far away, laughter still echoed, the kind that belonged to children who'd already gone home. The sound stretched thinner and thinner until it faded into the wind. Inside a small house on Maple Drive, Hannah Porter stood by the window. The glass was cold beneath her fingertips. Beyond it, the neighborhood had gone still. Porch lights flickered weakly through the mist, halos trembling in the dark. The last trick-or-treaters had passed almost 20 minutes ago, their pumpkin buckets bobbing down the hill. Now it was just her younger brother Kyle, and the house. The living room smelled like caramel and candle smoke, the kind of cozy sweetness that makes you think nothing bad can happen. Kyle sat cross-legged on the carpet, controller in hand, eyes glued to the flickering blue of the TV. "Level 24, he said without looking up. Almost beat it before they left. Their parents had gone to a Halloween dinner 2 streets over. Back by 11, their mom had promised. It was 9:47. Hannah tossed a handful of M&Ms into her mouth and leaned on the arm of the couch. The candy coating cracked between her teeth. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows, carrying with it the whisper of something unseen. She'd always hated the hour after 10 on Halloween. That was when the night stopped pretending to be fun, when the masks stopped being costumes, when you couldn't tell what was out there anymore. Then it came. 3 knocks, evenly spaced, deliberate. She froze. Kyle paused his game. They both looked toward the front door. "Someone forget what day it is?" he said, half joking. "No cars out front," she whispered. She moved to the window, parting the curtain. The driveway was empty. Another 3 knocks, this time slower, heavier. Thud, thud, thud. Her pulse quickened. She stepped closer, peered through the peephole, and her breath hitched. A white oval stared back. Not a face, a mask, smooth and featureless, with no eyes, no mouth, no expression. Just the faint sheen of plastic under the porch light. For a second, she thought it was a Halloween prop someone left on the step. Then it moved, just a tilt of the head. Curious, calculated. Her voice cracked into a nervous laugh. Probably some teenager. She opened the door halfway. The night breathed cold air into the hallway. The figure stood perfectly still. Average height, old gray coat, a small orange pumpkin bucket dangling from one hand. Hey, she said, forcing a smile. Bit late, huh? No answer, just silence, and that faint, muffled breathing from behind the mask. Okay, she murmured. Trick or treat, I guess. She dropped 2 pieces of candy into the bucket. The plastic rustled softly. Still no response. Nice costume, she tried again. Creepiest one tonight for sure. Nothing. The figure didn't move, didn't even nod, just stood there breathing. She shut the door, locked it. Kyle called out from the couch. Who was it? Just some weirdo, she said. Guess they wanted extra candy. He shrugged and unpaused the game. The TV resumed its hum of gunfire and static. For a moment, the world pretended to be normal again. Then 3 knocks, louder this time, slow, heavy. Each one rattled the frame. She turned to Kyle. He muted the TV. That them again? She didn't answer. Her hand trembled as she reached for the peephole. The porch was empty. She frowned, squinting into the mist. Nothing moved. Then, a soft tap on the side window. Her head snapped toward the sound. Through the glass, just beyond the reflection of her own wide eyes, the white mask hovered in the dark. It was inches away, close enough that the porch light caught the faintest scratch across its surface. It stayed there, long enough for her to realize she was holding her breath. Then it slid out of sight. "Kyle!" she screamed. He was already standing, phone in hand. No signal. They checked every door, every window. Locked, sealed. The house ticked with settling heat. Outside, only wind. At 10:06, Kyle whispered, "Maybe we should call Mom." "Yeah." But the call went straight to voicemail. Then, somewhere down the street, a low pop echoed, followed by a deep hum. The lights flickered once. Then everything went dark. The house, the street, everything. The air turned heavier, silent. Hannah could hear her own heartbeat. She fumbled in the drawer for the flashlight and clicked it on. The beam cut through the dark and landed on something outside. A small orange pumpkin bucket, placed neatly on the welcome mat. Empty. Her voice was barely a whisper. "They left it." Kyle shook his head. "Or they want you to open the door again." The flashlight trembled in her hand. He put a hand on her shoulder. "Fuse box is in the basement. I'll check it." "I'm coming with you." The basement stairs creaked beneath their weight. The air smelled damp and metallic. The flashlight beam danced across cobwebs and old paint cans. Kyle crouched near the breaker panel. "All looks fine," he said. Nothing tripped. Something clattered behind them. A soft metallic scrape against concrete. They turned. The beam swung wildly, landing on the shape of a water heater, a stack of boxes, and a figure standing at the bottom of the stairs. Not moving, just standing there, the white mask faintly glinting in the beam. Kyle froze. Hannah's breath came out in short, shaking bursts. "How did?" he started, but the light flickered. Then it died. Darkness swallowed them whole. Hannah screamed. Something brushed her arm, cold fabric. A whisper of motion beside her ear. She swung the flashlight blindly. It hit the floor, clattering once, then blinked back on. For half a second, the light caught the mask, inches from her face. Then it was gone. The basement fell silent. When the lights in the house came back, the figure had vanished. No footprints, no sound, only the pumpkin bucket, now sitting at the top of the stairs. They locked themselves in their parents' room. 10:23 p.m. Kyle dialed 911. A voice answered almost immediately. "Fairview Dispatch. What's your emergency?" "There's someone in our house," he said, voice shaking. "Wearing a mask. Is the person still inside?" I don't know. They were in the basement. They keep moving. Stay on the line. Officers are on their way. Can you describe?" Static cut through the line. Then another voice, a whisper. "Not the operator. Trick or treat." The line went dead. From downstairs came the creak of the front door opening. Creak, pause, creak. Footsteps. Slow, careful, coming up the stairs. Hannah gripped a baseball bat. Her pulse pounded so loud she thought the figure might hear it. The doorknob turned just a fraction, then stopped. Something slid under the door. A thin rectangle. Kyle bent down, picked it up. Polaroid photo. It showed them, Hannah and Kyle, standing by the living room window, taken from outside. Timestamp, 10:14 p.m., before the basement. Hannah's throat closed. "That's impossible." The fridge door opened downstairs. Closed. A chair scraped the floor. Whoever it was still there, and taking their time. Hannah pointed to the window. Kyle nodded, moving silently. He slid it open. Cold air rushed in. They climbed out onto the porch roof, feet slipping on the damp shingles. Below, the lawn shimmered with mist. Inside, they could still hear footsteps. Slow, measured, then 3 knocks. From inside the room they'd just escaped. Kyle's whisper shook. "How did they go?" Hannah hissed. They crawled to the edge and dropped onto the lawn. The shock of cold grass bit through their socks. They ran. Down the street. Through the fog. And then lights. Red and blue cutting through the dark. Police cruisers. Relief hit like a wave. They waved their arms. "Over here. Please." The officers turned flashlights toward them. "Stay where you are," one shouted. "Hands up." "What?" Hannah gasped. "We called you. There's someone." But the officers weren't looking at them. Their lights swept past, toward the house. The radio crackled. "Unit 3, movement inside. Front door open." The siblings turned. Their front door stood wide. And in the frame, the masked figure, head tilted, bucket dangling loosely, stepped backward, vanishing into the dark. Officers rushed the porch. Shouts, flashes of light through the windows. Then, silence. No one inside. No footprints. Just the pumpkin bucket on the floor. Inside it, 2 pieces of candy. And a Polaroid photo. The image showed police cars in the driveway. Timestamp, 10:31 p.m. By morning, Fairview was buzzing. Masked prankster terrifies siblings. No suspect found. Reporters called it a Halloween stunt gone wrong. No one believed the details. No one wanted to. Hannah didn't sleep for 2 nights. Kyle tried to act fine, but every time the wind hit the windows, he flinched. By the weekend, they'd convinced themselves it was over. Until Monday, their mom called her downstairs. "There's someone from the sheriff's office here." Deputy Daniels stood in the living room, hat in hand, eyes rimmed red. He flipped through a file. "You mentioned a photo? The one slid under your door?" Hannah nodded. He placed a second Polaroid on the table. Old, yellowed with age. Different house, different kids. Same faceless figure standing half-hidden in the background. "That was from '99, he said quietly. "Family in Pine Hollow. Halloween night. No one ever found them." He promised to call with updates. He never did. 2 years later, October 31st, Fairview hadn't changed. The same narrow streets, the same brittle wind, the same uneasy quiet. Hannah, now 19, pulled into the driveway. Her parents' house looked almost too familiar, like time had frozen it. She stepped out, hugging her jacket tight. Something small sat on the porch. Pumpkin bucket. Empty. Her breath caught. The air felt colder than it should. Inside, the house was quiet. Her mother's handwriting waited on a note by the kitchen counter. At the store, back soon. The silence pressed against her ears. Every clock tick felt too loud. She carried her bag upstairs. Stopped. On her dresser sat a single Polaroid. One she'd never seen before. It showed her as a child, wearing a ghost costume beside her mother. But her face had been covered over. White correction fluid. Smooth. Blank. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Static hissed through the speaker. Then a whisper. Slow. Deliberate. Trick or treat. The line went dead. The house went dark. They never found Hannah Porter again. When her parents returned that night, the front door was open. The pumpkin bucket sat on the porch. Inside, 2 pieces of candy and 1 Polaroid photo. It showed their house, taken from across the street. In the upstairs window, a white face, smooth and blank, watching. Every town has a place people pretend doesn't exist. In Fairview, that place was Blackwood Lane. Locals avoided it after dark. Not because of ghosts or murders. Not even because of the stories kids whispered around campfires. It was because of the house at the very end of that road. A rotting mansion wrapped in mirrors. They called it the Mirror House. Every wall, every hallway, every stair was covered in old, warped glass. Cracked at the corners, fogged with age, whispering when the wind passed through. Some said the mirrors moved when no one was looking. Some swore they saw faces in the reflections. Faces that didn't belong to them. For 50 years, the house sat empty. Until one Halloween night, when 4 college students decided to live stream inside it. Started as a dare. For friends Liam, Rhea, Danny, and Sophie ran a small YouTube channel called Night Probe. They explored urban legends, haunted places, forgotten buildings. Their channel had just enough views to make them reckless. That October, Liam wanted something special, something that would go viral. One night, scrolling through local forums, he found a thread titled, "The Mirror That Knows, Legend of the Blackwood House." He read it out loud to the group. They say if you speak your name into the mirror at midnight, it shows you how you die. Liam smirked. Perfect clickbait. Rhea rolled her eyes. Yeah, until the ghost demon copyright strikes us. But she smiled anyway. By 9 p.m. on Halloween night, they were unpacking cameras and flashlights beside the rusted iron gate. The house loomed beyond the trees, its roof sagging, its windows black and hollow. Hundreds of mirrors covered its exterior like broken scales. The moonlight scattered across them, splitting their reflections into thousands. For shadows multiplied endlessly in the dark. "Let's make history," Liam said, pushing open the gate. It groaned like an animal waking from sleep. Inside, the air felt thick, metallic. Their footsteps echoed against the wood and glass. The mirrors on the walls trembled slightly, catching slivers of candlelight and flashlight beams. The entire house seemed alive, breathing with them. They split up to set cameras in every room. Rhea stayed near the staircase, monitoring the chat on her phone. Hundreds of viewers were already typing, laughing, sending dares, spamming ghost emojis. "Say hi, Danny," she called out. Danny turned toward her, flashlight trembling in his hand. "Rhea, look at this." Across the hall, a tall oval mirror leaned against the wall. But in its reflection, Rhea wasn't holding her phone. Her hands were empty. She forced a shaky laugh. Probably just glare or angle distortion. "Let's keep moving." They regrouped in the dining room, a cavernous space with a massive antique mirror standing behind a long, dust-covered table. Its frame was carved from black wood. Faces etched into it, dozens of them, their mouths frozen mid-scream. Sophie rubbed her arms. "Who makes something like that?" Liam grinned for the camera. A genius or a lunatic? At 10:14 p.m., the stream began its main segment, summoning the reflection. According to the legend, if you stood before the main mirror and whispered your name 3 times, you'd see your death. Liam volunteered first. He stepped into the frame, his flashlight turned off, one candle flickering on the dusty table behind him. His reflection shimmered in the glass. "Ready?" Rhea asked, filming. He nodded, facing the mirror. Liam Carter. The glass vibrated, almost imperceptibly. Liam Carter. The candlelight bent, stretching shadows across his face. He hesitated, then whispered a third time, Liam Carter. Silence. Then his reflection smiled. Except Liam hadn't. Sophie gasped. Did you see that? Liam blinked. See what? But on the live stream, the reflection was still smiling. And then, slowly, it raised a hand and pressed it against the inside of the mirror. The chat went wild. Fake? CGI? WTF is that? Liam forced a grin. That's post-production magic, people. But there was no editing. They were live. At 10:27, the lights flickered and went out completely. Only the glow of phone screens remained, blue and trembling. Danny cursed. We must have tripped a breaker. He turned toward the hall and froze. Someone was standing in the doorway. A figure, faint, colorless, completely still. Liam, Danny whispered. No answer. The figure didn't move. Rhea swung her flashlight toward it. The doorway was empty, but when she turned back to the mirror, there were 5 reflections instead of 4. Her voice cracked. Guys, there's someone else. Liam stepped closer to the glass. The mirror was fogging from the inside, condensation crawling across the surface like breath. Letters began to form, written backward. S-T-A-Y. The candle flickered, then went out. Sophie screamed. Her reflection was gone. She waved her arms in front of the mirror. Nothing. The glass showed only an empty outline where she stood. Liam reached for her shoulder. It's fine, just calm down. But the reflection of his hand stayed on her shoulder even after he pulled away. Then it started crawling upward, over her neck, toward her face. Sophie shrieked, and the sound ripped through the room like splitting glass. The giant mirror cracked straight down the middle. The live stream chat exploded. She's gone. Turn around. What is that? Danny's flashlight wavered. Sophie was on the floor, shaking, gasping. Every mirror in the room now showed her dozens of versions, each moving slightly out of sync, like echoes in time, until one version stood up on its own, turned toward the others, smiling. Its eyes were empty. Its face was Sophie's, but the movement wasn't human. End the stream, Liam shouted. End it now. Rhea dropped her phone. The camera clattered to the floor, tilted sideways, still streaming. In the reflection, Sophie's mirrored self pressed her hand against the glass and stepped through. The feed cut at 10:41 p.m., but the stream kept running, broadcasting 20 more minutes of static and faint motion. Shadows moved in the glass, shapes pacing behind the cracked surface. When police arrived at 11:03, the house was empty. No blood, no signs of struggle. For tripods stood in the dining room, all pointed at the same mirror. The glass was split down the middle, the candle burned out. But in the reflection, 4 faint figures stood exactly where the students should have been. And they were still moving. Weeks later, the stream was deleted for graphic content. YouTube issued a statement claiming the footage had been doctored. But copies still circulate online, glitchy, corrupted, traded in private horror forums. If you pause at the last surviving frame just before the feed dies, you can see a single close-up of the mirror, fractured like a spider web. Across the surface, 4 words appear backward, traced by something from inside the glass. We found you too. 2 months later, a realtor placed a for sale sign in the yard of the Blackwood property. It's still there, bent, rusted, the phone number worn away. No one ever called. No one ever moved in. But sometimes, when cars pass by after midnight, Their headlights catch flashes of movement in the upper windows, for figures standing side by side. If you look closely, you can see they're holding cameras. Their faces are pale, their eyes wide, always watching. And if you listen closely, beneath the hum of static and wind, you might hear faint laughter, a distorted voice whispering through the dark. Welcome back to Night Probe. They used to call Fairview the friendliest little town in the county. Every Halloween, the streets would glow orange. Jack-o'-lanterns on every porch, kids running in packs, laughter echoing under the flickering streetlights. That was before the year the trick-or-treaters never came home. Now, the decorations stay in boxes, porch lights stay off, and the only sound you'll hear on Halloween night is the wind whispering down Blackwood Lane. Because everyone in Fairview remembers. They remember the night something answered the door instead. It started with Ethan Crow, a single father trying to hold on to normal. 2 years earlier, he'd moved into a quiet little house 2 blocks from the Porters, the family whose daughter, Lila, had vanished one Halloween night and was never seen again. People still whispered about that. They said Lila had been taken by something with no face, that she'd knocked on one door too many, that her reflection never came back. Ethan didn't believe in ghost stories. He believed in bills, bad sleep, and keeping his 10-year-old son, Ben, safe. Halloween came like always, pumpkins carved, costumes laid out. Ben wore a cheap plastic pumpkin mask, the kind with a crooked smile and thin rubber strap. He joined the neighborhood kids for trick-or-treating. Ethan watched them disappear down the street, laughing. That was the last time he'd hear laughter in Fairview. It was around 10:30 p.m. when the knock came. Ethan opened the door and froze. Ben stood there alone. His pillowcase bulged with candy, but the mask he wore wasn't the same. It was smooth, white, featureless. Ethan's soft laugh. New mask, huh? Where'd you get it? Ben didn't answer. He just walked past his father, silent, and went straight to his room. Ethan told himself it was just kids being weird. A prank. He wanted to believe that, but the chill in the air said otherwise. Later that night, Ethan came downstairs for water and stopped. Ben's pillowcase lay spilled across the kitchen floor. Every single piece of candy was unwrapped. Not eaten, just opened, and the wrappers flattened perfectly, arranged in a circle. In the center sat a small Polaroid photo. Ethan picked it up with shaking fingers. It showed Ben, standing at their front door. Timestamp, 10:31 p.m. Exactly the moment Ethan had opened the door. He stared at the photo for a long time before whispering, "Who took this?" The air felt colder. The kitchen clock ticked louder. Somewhere upstairs, a floorboard creaked. He told himself it was nothing. He turned off the light, went upstairs, and saw that Ben's door was slightly open. Inside, the boy sat on his bed, still awake. The white mask lay on the pillow beside him, staring blankly at the ceiling. "Ethan, big night." "Huh, buddy? You should get some sleep." Ben didn't move. Ethan sighed, reached for the blanket, and froze. The mask was gone. When Ben finally turned his head, the room was too dark to see his face clearly. But for one impossible second, Ethan saw nothing, just smooth skin where eyes and mouth should have been. He blinked. It was gone. Ben was there again, pale, quiet, eyes half closed. Ethan backed out of the room, whispering, "I need sleep." He didn't sleep. It was close to 2 a.m. when the whispering began. At first, it sounded like wind pushing through the cracks in the walls. then clearer. A soft, rhythmic chant. Trick or treat. Ethan sat up, heart pounding. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the baby monitor he still kept in Ben's room. Static hissed. Then another voice, deeper, wetter, wrong, whispered, "Your turn." Ethan bolted up the stairs. Ben's bed was empty. The window stood open. The white mask rested on the sill, glowing in the moonlight like porcelain. Outside, down the street, he saw them. Children, dozens of them, all wearing the same smooth white masks, each carrying a small pumpkin bucket. They walked in perfect silence, in perfect unison, toward the far end of town. Ethan shouted his son's name, but none of them turned. Their footsteps didn't sound right. Not the crunch of leaves, but the slow glide of something not quite touching the ground. Barefoot and shaking, Ethan followed. Street after street. Every porch light flickered out as they passed. Every front door opened slowly by itself. And from each house, another child stepped out to join the line. No words, no laughter, just the endless whisper echoing between them. Trick or treat, trick or treat. The procession led to the edge of Fairview, to the house at the end of Blackwood Lane. Locals called it the Mirror House. It had been abandoned for years. Its walls were lined with cracked mirrors that caught the moonlight like water. Rumor said the house used to belong to a carnival magician. Others said it was where Lila Porter disappeared. Now, in every broken pane, faint shapes moved. Children's reflections, staring back. Ethan stumbled forward, screaming, "Ben! Ben!" The masked children stopped, all at once, then turned toward him. Their masks glowed faintly white. The hollow eye holes shimmered, reflecting faces, but not their own. Inside the mirrors, dozens of trapped children pounded silently, desperate to be seen. And from deep within the house, Ethan heard a familiar voice whisper, "Dad, don't look." He froze. Tears blurred his vision. "Ben!" He turned toward the nearest mirror and saw his reflection smiling back. Only he wasn't. The reflection lifted a hand, pressed it against the glass, and pulled. Ethan felt something cold grip his chest. His skin tingled like static. He tried to scream, but the sound never came out. The mirror rippled and swallowed him whole. When morning came, Fairview was silent. No children in the streets, no candy wrappers, only faint footprints that faded before the sun touched them. A passing driver found Ethan's car still idling at the curb. Driver's door open, keys in the ignition. On the passenger seat sat a small pumpkin bucket. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It showed the Mirror House, its windows filled with hundreds of faces. Front and center was a small boy wearing a smooth white mask. On the back, written in shaky handwriting, "Thank you for letting us in. Fairview doesn't celebrate Halloween anymore. No decorations, no porch lights, no laughter. But some say that if you drive past Blackwood Lane at midnight on Halloween, you might still see them. Children standing in front of the Mirror House, buckets in hand, masks glowing faintly under the moonlight. And if you slow down, if you dare to look closer, you'll see your own reflection in one of those broken mirrors. Just don't wave, because it will wave back, even after you've driven away. They say curiosity opens doors, but some doors were never meant to open. If you made it this far, you're one of us now." Pause, faint whisper overlapping. "Welcome to Night Whispers." Headphones subscribe for true horror every week at midnight. And remember, don't look behind you.